Hi, this is Saransh again from Case Interviews Cracked. Here we do another version of the electronics manufacturing profitability case. The candidate gave an above average performance. During the case, notice how he effectively uses the paper and is very structured in his overall approach. Hi Atar, thanks for coming in.
Thank
How
you.
are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing great too. So let's start with your first case.
Sure.
Our client is an electronics manufacturer in India. Their sales have declined by approximately 20% over the last couple of years, and they've asked us to step in as to how we can turn around the situation.
Okay, so if I get the case right, our client is an electronics manufacturer based in India, and their sales have reduced by approximately 20% over the last 2 years.
Right.
Okay. So I just wanted to clarify a few things about our client.
Sure.
So where is the client based?
Our client is based in Maharashtra. That's where they have their factory.
Okay, so they manufacture from Maharashtra.
Right.
And where do they sell?
They are selling in urban tier 1, tier 2 cities.
Okay, and what do they sell?
So they have a range of kitchen electronic items. So everything from your microwave to washing machines to toasters.
Okay, so can you also tell me the rough split across the product range that they sell of the revenue? The
Revenue
sales?
split. So their main product is toasters, and almost 90% of the revenues are concentrated in, or rather come from toasters.
Okay, and all the other products make up the remaining.
Yeah, remaining 10%.
Okay.
Right.
There are no other revenue sources like no distribution, no.
Yeah, primarily this.
Okay. And just one more thing about the client. So, are we only into manufacturing, or do we also distribute, sell?
So our client manufactures, and then we have third-party distributors and retailers.
Okay. So, we're only into the manufacturing.
Exactly.
Okay. So, can I just take a minute to
Sure.
jot down a few things?
Notice the candidate has asked very good preliminary questions. He's asked about the exact nature of the products that the client sells, where do we lie in the value chain, and he's also asked for the relative split of different products and their contribution towards our revenue. This particular question can be asked either in preliminary questions or even later when you're breaking down the revenue structure. But the important thing is remembering to ask this question. He also asked about where are we based in terms of geography. Additionally, he could have also asked where is the market located, since the location of our factory can be different from the location of where we actually sell our products in the market and where our customers lie.
Okay, so can I just tell you my overall approach to the case and ask you if that's
that's a
fine?
great idea.
Okay, so what I will do right now is I'll split the profit as revenues minus costs.
Okay.
I'll split the revenues further into two revenue streams, two major revenue streams. One is from toasters and one is from the other products. I'll then this I'll further bifurcate into the number of units sold into the price per unit, which will give us the revenue for every branch.
Okay.
And I'll break down the costs as costs for toasters, manufacturing toasters, distributing toasters, so on, and for other products. And in the toasters, I'll look at the fixed cost and the variable cost, and I'll do the same for the other, and then we'll.
But why do you want to look at the cost branch as of now?
So, in case. Okay.
So I guess let's just move ahead with the revenue branch for now, since it's a sales decline.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But yeah, this sounds good.
Okay.
So far, the candidate has given a good explanation of his overall approach to address the problem. He is also using the paper effectively to communicate with the interviewer by drawing out his structure. However, there was no need to look at the cost side of things since this is a sales decline issue. Often, candidates are so used to using the profit structure that without recognizing that the case question only involves sales, they also draw out the cost structure. It's always useful to be sure of which particular branch is relevant for your analysis.
Let's move ahead with the sales. Okay, so let's look at toasters first. So, can you tell me in the relative percentage of these two, has there been a problem with sales of the toasters or in other products? Is there a specific number associated with the two?
You mean the
Sales decline across the
sales decline? So sales as a percentage, sales have primarily declined in the toasters segment. All our other appliances are doing more or less where they were last 2 years back.
Okay, fine. So the primary decline has been in the toasters.
Right.
Okay, and when you say sales have reduced, do you mean that the total revenue from the sales is reduced or the number of units sold is reduced?
So in fact, both actually. So our price per unit has remained the same, and our revenues have from the toaster segment has reduced primarily because of a reduction in number of units.
Okay,
So around 22% reduction in unit sales.
okay, so number of units sold has reduced. Okay, so now that we've come to now that we've come to a conclusion that sales is an issue, that there's been a decline in the number of units sold, I'd like to do a value chain analysis to see where exactly the bottleneck lies. Can I do that?
All right, sure.
Okay, so I've basically broken down the value chain of the product into three steps. So first is the production, the second is distribution and retail, and the third is consumer pool. So I would like to ask whether there have been any changes in each of these over the last 2 years. So we'll go one by one.
All right.
Is that fine?
Yeah, sounds good.
So has there been a shift in production patterns in the last 2 years?
So actually, we did have an unplanned shutdown, and that resulted in us producing fewer number of units than we would have liked.
Okay. Yeah. So one question about the shutdown: how long was the shutdown?
This was around. Typically, we have smaller shutdowns, but this lasted for 3 months.
Okay, so 3 months in the last 2 years.
Right.
Okay. That's interesting. So if I get this right, so there has been an unplanned shutdown of 3 months in the last 2 years, which is roughly 24 months. So if we look at a ratio, the production affected is roughly 1/8, and that is significantly lesser than 20%. So I think there might be an issue elsewhere. Just to confirm this hypothesis, I would like to ask one thing. So there were also months when there was no production shutdown, right?
Yes.
So in those months, were your sales targets met?
That's a very good question. Even actually, in the months where we were meeting our production targets, we still weren't meeting our sales targets.
Okay. Okay, so I think that helps us pinpoint the fact that production was not the only bottleneck in the whole process, and that we should also look at the other two. So can I go ahead and look at
Yeah,
distribution?
that's a great insight.
Okay. Yeah, so about our distribution channels, I would like to know a little more. So how do our distribution channels exactly work? Like, who are our distributors?
Sure. So we have three types of retailers. They are primarily electronic shops which sell our products.
Okay.
So we've got small retailers, then we've got large retailers, and then we also have e-commerce as a channel.
Okay, so there are small retailers like normal shops. Large retailers can be something like Chroma, maybe.
Exactly.
And e-commerce will be something like Flipkart, Amazon.
Yes.
Specialty. Okay.
Yes.
And what is the distribution split across these three?
So you can say roughly 40% small retailers, 40% large, and 20% e-commerce.
Okay. And so do we also have data on how the sales targets have been affected across the three segments of distribution channels?
So we've seen a uniform decline across the three segments. So the same 2% decline that has happened equally across each channel.
Okay. Fine. So I would also now like to look at each individual segment and see what perks we offer or what is our incentive to the distributors and how has that changed over the last 2 years maybe. So I'll start with small retailers.
So actually I can give you the information there. Compared to our competition, the margins and the incentive that we offer to our retailers is more or less the same as our competitors, maybe in fact slightly more.
Okay. And this is the monetary incentive, right?
Yes.
And is there any other incentive that, not incentive as such, but any other factors that might be hindering, for example, the size, the cargo transportation?
I think it's a fairly standard toaster unit similar to other competitors, so
Okay. And
we don't think that should be a factor dissuading distributors, retailers to stock our product.
Fine. So I think all this information leads us to the fact that we can eliminate distribution as a bottleneck and we can move on to consumer pull. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. The candidate has effectively analyzed the distribution branch of the value chain. He has asked for information like what are our different channels. He's also quantified the information by asking the split of each channel and if there has been a difference in sales decline across any of the channels. He then went on ahead to ask if there are any monetary incentives because of which our product is not being pushed as much as before, or non monetary reasons like size of the package which might be dissuading the distributor. Finally, he synthesized and said that the distribution branch can be eliminated. He then gauged the interviewer's body language, and after getting an approval that the distribution branch has been effectively analyzed, the candidate moved on to the next branch of analysis.
Okay, to know more about the consumer, I would want to ask you one thing. So, how is the market? How is the toaster market in general? Like, how many competitors do we have?
Sure. So we have four other competitors,
Okay.
and roughly each of both us as well as our competitors roughly have a 20% share each.
Okay. So, all five are major players in the market.
Yeah.
Okay, and about these competitors, before I move on to like individual competitor analysis, I would like to ask if the industry, like the toaster industry, has seen a decline or is facing a backlash from some other industry.
If in terms of, the industry dynamics have remained the same. So
Okay, so has it not met the growth predictions according to the other parts of the economy or something?
So what we've observed is that overall the industry size has remained constant, but some of the players are doing better than the others.
Okay. Okay, so if some players are doing better than the other, I'm going to go ahead on assumption that there are factors that people or consumers look for in a toaster that vary from competitor to competitor, and I would first like to list those factors down, and then we can benchmark competitors accordingly.
All right, sure.
Okay, so to do this, I would like to step into the shoes of the consumer and think about how a consumer would go about buying a toaster.
Okay.
So the first thing would be the accessibility of, say, retailers or availability of the product.
Okay.
Once I have a product, the first thing that I will compare is the specifications, like how does it toast, how well it performs, and so on.
Okay.
Then obviously I'd compare the price, and I would like to split the price into two. So one is the power consumed and one is the cost price or the selling price.
Interesting.
Because it might so happen that the wattage of one might be more significantly
Yeah,
high.
makes sense.
Okay, and once I've bought the product, so say after sales service after that. So once I have the product,
Okay.
I would also require more
Right.
after sales. Okay, so do we have any data on how we perform? So are there any other metrics that you would like me to?
No, I think this is a good list. We can go ahead with this.
Okay, so can you tell me if the availability of?
Sure. So I think in terms of the points that you've mentioned, our product has been available in shops except for the time when we had our production issue.
Okay.
In terms of specifications, I think everyone typically has the same kind of toaster, so not much difference. In terms of price, our price is almost 1.5 times compared to two of our competitors. So you can say A and B have a price of 1x and we have a price of 1.5x, and C and D, the other two competitors, they have a price of 1.5x as well.
Okay.
In terms of energy efficiency, I think all the players have a similar
Okay.
energy efficiency. In terms of after sales service, so we provide a 2-year guarantee for the toaster, whereas other players just provide a 1-year guarantee.
Okay, so this like rough matrix I think tells us one thing, that we are better at after sales service and our prices are higher than the rest of the competitors. So I would like
Not everyone, but compared to A and
some
B,
other competitors.
while it's similar to C and D, right?
Yeah. So I would like to go back to one fact that we mentioned here, that some players are doing better than the others. So I would like to see if these overlap with people who are offering a lesser price.
Yes, in fact that's the case. So A and B are doing better, their market share is increasing, while C, D as well as us are seeing a reduction.
Okay. So can we say that this is a price elastic market and the consumer is highly price elastic and he would switch to a toaster or any product that offers
I think that's a fair. After realizing that customers are not really purchasing our product, the candidate has effectively benchmarked the product on several parameters against the competition. He's covered most of the important points, and after that asked the interviewer if there is anything else that he should analyze. This is a good way to involve the interviewer in the problem solving. In case there was another issue apart from the ones that he listed, such as brand positioning and sales and marketing, the interviewer then would have asked the candidate that why do you not think of other reasons why there might be a mismatch between what the competition is offering and what we are offering. After identifying that price could be one of the issues, the candidate tested his hypothesis by asking which of the players are seeing a decrease in sales and if those players are also priced higher than competition. A good approach. All in all, a good way of benchmarking with respect to the competition and arriving at the root cause for the sales decline.
Okay, now I would like to look at our price and how we price our product, if we can reduce our price in some way. So,
Right.
can you tell me how we price our product?
So we essentially have a manufacturing cost, and then there is a certain profit margin that we attach to it, uh, which is around 20%, and that's how we arrive at our price. We need this profit margin to overcome our fixed investments.
Okay, and is this profit margin same for all competitors? Like, do
Yes,
ASP offer a...
everyone typically has a 20% margin.
Fine, so that brings us down to the fact that our manufacturing cost might be higher than the other players.
Yes.
Because everything else is the same.
Correct.
So I would like to now further break down the cost and see if there is any
Sure.
stark difference in
Sure.
how we... Okay, so I would like to break down cost as fixed cost and variable cost.
Yeah.
So
let's just analyze the variable cost, because fixed cost is something that is a sunk cost and there's not really much we can do about it.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So I'll jot down what variable cost is. So how I would like to define variable cost is a cost that changes with every unit produced.
Fair enough.
So let's look at it from a point of view of, say, a manufacturing cycle.
Okay.
So say I want to manufacture a toaster. What do I do first? So I'll get the raw materials first.
All right. Yeah.
Raw material. I would like to further break down raw materials into whatever raw materials you use for a toaster. So can you tell me?
Sure, but let's list down all
Okay,
the other
let's-
costs. Then we could probably go
Okay,
deep
delve
into.
deeper. Okay. So raw materials. Then once I have the raw materials, I'll need processing. So there'll be manufacturing.
Okay.
In manufacturing, I just like to break this down quickly because I think there'll be two costs. One is the utility that is used, for example, electricity, fuel, and so on.
Fair enough.
And there'll also be labor.
All right.
Once we've manufactured, we'll need to store them, so there'll be some storage costs involved.
Okay.
And there'll be distribution costs. For example, transportation to the distributor.
Right,
And
right.
so on. Okay, so
Any other cost you think we might be just skipping? That's fine. So we can just probably consider sales and marketing cost as well.
sales and marketing costs.
But this looks good.
Yeah, this makes sense. Yeah, so can you tell me if any of these costs that we incur are significantly different from our competitors? So let's go one by one. So do we procure raw materials from different sources, or are our raw materials costs?
So we do procure it from different sources, but it's more or less the same on a per unit basis.
Okay. Yeah, and just to make sure we're talking about on a per unit basis.
Yes.
I'm just clarifying that once. Okay, and into manufacturing, are our utility costs higher because of location or maybe unavailability of certain resources?
In terms of utilities, in terms of electricity, etc., it's more or less the same on a per unit basis.
Okay. And what about our labor costs? Do we manufacture in different geographies that leads to higher labor costs or unionization or anything like that?
The candidate is asking if a specific cost is higher than competition. This is good. However, he can avoid suggesting possible reasons as to why the cost may be higher. It's better to simply ask whether a specific cost is higher. Only if the interviewer tells you that is the case, then it is worth spending time in terms of breaking down that cost into its components and analyzing each one of them. So actually our labor costs are higher, and in fact our geography is also different compared to our competitors in terms of where we manufacture.
Okay. So I have noted this down. We'll come back to this after we finish the rest of them. So are our storage costs different from?
No, I think storage, distribution, sales, and marketing are more or less same compared to competition.
So everything else is the same. I think the only difference here is the labor cost.
Right.
Okay, so I would now further like to break down the labor cost into the number of laborers or number of laborers required to manufacture per unit
Yeah.
into the wage of a laborer.
Yeah.
Say per or per unit time that is required to manufacture. per
Right.
unit. Okay, so are our number of laborers different? So do we employ a process that is more intensive when it comes to human labor?
In terms of intensity, I think it's the same as our competition.
Okay, and what about the wages that we pay?
The wages that we pay are higher compared to our competitors.
Okay. Interesting. So I would now like to look at why we pay higher wages.
Mhm.
So can I list down a few factors that might lead to higher wages? Or
Actually, as you had identified earlier, geography seems to be the reason. While our location has continued to be in Maharashtra, our competitors have moved their operations to China, as a result of which they are able to afford and get cheaper labor.
interesting. So is there any reason why we have not moved to China?
So, part of our identity of the brand comes from being an Indian brand,
Okay.
and as a result of that, the proprietor of the client really does not want to ship the jobs overseas.
Okay. And even if we're losing sales in the process, we still would not want to move out of this geography.
Ideally, we wouldn't want to move out of India. Yes, that seems to be a constraint.
Okay, so when you talk about a brand identity, do you mean a brand identity related to made in India or?
Yes, something like that. Right.
Okay. Interesting. So have we also have we thought of moving out of Maharashtra to other places in India?
That's actually an interesting option. We can possibly explore that.
Okay. And fine, we can explore this. So we can move to places where so I think we need to also strike a balance here, and that is important because we can talk about moving to places where the wage is lower, but we can also significantly increase the other costs.
Right.
So I think we should look at geographies where everything else remains the same or reduces, and our wages also reduce.
That's a good idea. So I think Athar, this looks good. Since we are running out of time, we could probably synthesize the case.
Okay, can I have half a minute or
Sure.
a minute? Please? Okay, so my major recommendation would be to move to a different geography within India, as the client doesn't want to move out of India, to reduce labor costs. Also keeping in mind that no other cost should increase because otherwise it would be a futile thing. There is one more suggestion that I would like to give. We can look at areas like SEZs or areas where there are processing zones or MIDCs, for example, industrial development centers, where we can get cheaper labor, cheaper electricity, and so on. And we can also make use of campaigns that the government is running, like a Make in India campaign, which can lead to better offers for us in terms of taxation and so on.
All right, that looks great. Thanks, Athar.
Thank you.
It was great interviewing. Thank you. The candidate exercised good business judgment when he gave his recommendation of moving the plant outside Maharashtra, with the caveat being that it should not impact on other cost items. The synthesis of the candidate could have been better. The ideal format for synthesis is a single recommendation with three supporting reasons. Here, the candidate included untested recommendations as part of his synthesis. Overall, during this case, the candidate gave a good performance. He asked good preliminary questions, had a strong overall approach, and largely followed a good MISI or mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive approach. The candidate was also quite neat on paper. He showed his structure effectively and was able to communicate as a result. so that the interviewer could always be in sync with where he was going with the problem solving.